song was inspired when we went to New York, and when we were there, we really felt like we needed to go to Ground Zero. And we went this past year, and it was one of those things where you look at this hole in the ground and you watch people walking by as if nothing's ever happened. And it was one of those realizations of, this is so us in our everyday lives, that when tragedies happen, we immediately fall to our knees, immediately pray, immediately press into God. But as time, you know, as the days get longer and as things get better, we begin to forget those things that had originally drawn us to our knees, and we begin to forget the things that had drawn us to God. And we live our everyday lives and we forget about Him, and once again put Him on the back burner. We only pray, we only press in when there's a tragedy in our lives. And this song comes from a cry of our hearts to say, God, we want you to be a part of our everyday lives. We want to press in every day, good and bad. We want to have an intimate relationship with you and not just go to you when we're hurting, and not just go to you when we need something. We don't need you as we don't want to like put a quarter in and like, you know, put our prayer in and hope He answers. We want Him to not just be this machine, but in a sense to be in our everyday lives. And that was definitely the prayer of our hearts for this song.
I was reading a book, and I found this quote.
Was it a Corrie ten Boom book?
I think it was a Corrie ten Boom book. And I found a quote in the book that they had said years ago in a concentration camp, right after it was all over. They went into a men's concentration camp, and they found in the wall, carved into the wall, a quote that says, "I believe in the sun even when it's not shining. I believe in love even when I can't feel it, and I believe in God even when He's silent." They don't know if the man's story, they don't know who he was, but they said to go into a concentration camp and to see a quote like that on the wall is unreal. I think it makes you go, and it made me go, how much do I complain about my life, you know, in the silly things that go on, when look at this man of faith, that he could speak something like that, where what a dark place to be in, to write something that profound, and to write something that full of faith and full of love for a God that he probably couldn't feel at that moment. And so
so she shared, let's say it came down, she just shared it with her, like, that's got to be a song.
We ended up starting to write a song for our nieces and our nephew. It's just a very difficult thing for us to leave home, because we are very, very close to our brother and our sister-in-law and to their children. Our family just, I mean, as close as you see us, that's really how close we are to our family back at home. And so really the biggest thing by far is leaving them behind and getting the pictures on the phone of, you know, of the kids or of our brother, and they're growing up and you're missing so much. And I think for us, one night, it had been maybe a month and a half we had been gone. We had been on tour, and we were just feeling it. You know, we were just missing them so much. And I remember just crying and going, you know, God, you know, this is hard, and I miss them, and I miss everything about, you know, about our life at home. And I just remember getting to a point and saying, but you have called us. You have called us to follow you in our lives, and right now where you're calling us, we do have to be away, and we do have to make sacrifices right now. And so once more, here's my life. Like it's kind of a rededication in a way.
One of the things that has becoming a popular trend is the thing of, what if we don't talk about God, but what if we just live a good life and kind of live out kind of like the spiritual, because kind of like being nice and being peaceful and, you know,
fun.
just being just a good example, a good person. And then when these people see that we're just good people and we're very positive, then they'll come to us and ask us, you know, whatever, and then, you know, hopefully someone will ask us that question, and then we could talk to them about Jesus.
But really, the main thing is just don't say Jesus' name,
because it just offends people. You know, at first it sounds right and it sounds good, and at first, you know, you kind of like, yeah, I get it, but then you're like, wait a minute, this man, God, gave his life for me.
And we realized the power, it's so blatant in the Bible, there's power in his name. And so what is the first thing that the enemy's trying to get us to do is stop speaking his name. And so this song really came from that. And I think we say Jesus in the song like
a billion times. This song is one of my favorites on the album, I'd say. It's kind of just the anthem, one of the anthems for this album. And just kind of shaking up our generation. And just kind of saying, come on, we can be controversial to this world. We can take a stand for the things that God is telling us to stand for as Christians. We all have a calling on our life.
Yeah.
We all have something incredible that we're supposed to do. And I mean, it's probably not gonna be on stage with lights, but a lot of people are happy about that, which is great because a lot of people wouldn't want to do this. But just because the world makes this look better or whatever doesn't,
or more important,
it's totally not true, because God has an equal or even greater calling on everyone's life. And so this song is just about shaking people up to say, find out what God has you to do and just live it incredibly.
Unforgiveness is one of the worst things that we could hold on to as people. And I really just began to see it in my life of how often I'm just so unwilling to forgive somebody that's hurt me. And God really began to take me, and I feel like our family, through a process of how to release somebody, you know, how to forgive. And one of the biggest things that God began to challenge me on was, Alyssa, setting somebody else free is your freedom as well, because really you are just as bound. So we wrote that song not like, hey, everything's fine, I've forgiven everybody, but really as a part of the journey about what it means to forgive, and that yes, it is a process, yes, it does take time, and yes, it is by the grace of God that we're able to forgive. But if He's forgiven us so much, He commands that unless we forgive our brother, He's unable to forgive us.
Yeah, for this song, it was one of those things that we really desired to paint a picture of what the spiritual life is like. And so many times in Scripture, it compares your spiritual walk to a battle, and putting on the full armor of God, and standing firm and standing for what you believe in, and running the race and doing all these things that are almost like physical activities to show that you're in the faith. Because so often people don't realize that this is a battle. They don't realize that you need to be putting on your armor. They don't realize you have a sword for a reason in the Spirit. You need to be using the pieces of armor that God has given you in your daily walk. And if you're not going to be victorious in your life, and you're going to fall to many things. And for us, like that, this is our desire to say, God, with God, you can take it one more round as long as your hands are up and you're ready to fight one more round.
Yeah. I think this song really kind of came out of Romans 12:2.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much like our verse, I guess, which is
actually in my songwriting book.
Yeah.
Right above all the lyrics, it's Romans 12:2 written.
Yeah.
So yeah, very sure. Yeah.
Which is, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's kind of like our lifespan verse kind of thing. And so this song just says how it's so, we get wrapped up in the whole thing of wanting to do everything the way the world's doing it and please this world and just so we could fit in. But this song just says, you know what? Forget what the world says. Forget all the peer pressure that's around me, because God, I have to live. Bottom line, I have to live my life for you, no matter what it means, no matter what
chance I have to take.
Yeah. So that's just kind of what Take My Chances is I'm gonna take them, because who cares what the world says? So yeah.
God blesses us so greatly when we have a pure heart, because when we get rid of so many impurities, it actually, when we have a pure heart, is when we're more bound to God, and when we can hear Him greater, and when we can feel Him and sense Him, because we're going to Him and we're not going to other things that are actually like tainting our hearts and keep putting a barrier in between us and God. And this song we wrote, the boys song, which is for guys, so that they know they can't just brush it off on the girls. It's not just for the girls. We desire to encourage the men of our generation, the men of this world, that God desires them to live purely as well. And no matter what has been in their past, no matter what they've done or gone through, God wants to start today. We realize that in our generation that men are so beat down, and if Satan only has one arrow, he's gonna go after the men. And if he only has one arrow for a family, he's going to go after the man. Because if he does that, the rest of the family will crumble. And the thing that we realize is there's a great battle for each man's life in this world. And what our desire is to encourage these men and to say, God has a calling on your life. Satan is trying to make you feel like you are valueless and that you're not victorious and that you're just, you just bring home a paycheck and there's no value in your life. But God desires you to be a valiant warrior. And that's what we desire for men to hear, is purity is not sissy. Purity is not a wussy man thing. That's a valiant man is a pure man.
We had gotten a lot of people asking us questions of like, Okay, so you kind of said you're doing the whole not dating thing. Are you really serious? Are you going to keep doing this whole thing? Or is it, come on, it's time to find like a boyfriend because you're really closed off. You're really,
getting old.
you know.
You're getting old.
And, you know, and just this whole thing of like, do you really think this is actually going to work? Or you're actually going to ever get married and never have, you know, pursue dating relationships? And it just kind of came to a point of like, you know what? So it's not being done. So everybody's not jumping on the whole not dating bandwagon. But you know what? It's what God has called us to do in our life. And I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is what God has totally called us to do, is to give our hearts to Him.
Yeah.
So when it's time for us to get married, He will have our hearts, and it won't have been given away to different people. And so it was just kind of us just saying, you know what, God? I don't ever regret saying that you're mine, and I don't regret living this life that I am living. And so, yeah, so maybe dating looks like it could be fun. Maybe it looks like it would be whatever, everybody else is doing it. Maybe I'd fit in more because I'm doing it, but not a day goes by that I'm like, gee, I'd ever make this commitment.